give you a few hints what you can leverage with Commvault to mean the opportunities. So I will not be going deeply into the Commvault details because we don't have time for that. I will just try to focus on the key areas which may be interesting for your customers. So first of all, just quickly about the portfolio. So Commvault essentially a bit changed the portfolio in terms of how we are organizing our products. So basically, you have the core products, which is the Commvault backup and the recovery, which is providing you all of the backup and recovery capabilities, including the cloud, on-prem, workload protection. Additional product, which is in the past called the Orchestrate, it's called the Commvault Disaster Recovery. So those are the features around VMs replication, database replication, and the whole disaster recovery stuff. And those products can be bought separately. So we can, for example, just buy the disaster recovery product without the backup capabilities, or you can buy the disaster recovery on top of the classic Commvault data protection. Additional products that we have are grouped in, let's say, few main areas. So the first one is the Activate. So the features around getting more from your data. So those are the three on the bottom. So the file search optimization, data governance, compliance, and discovery. And I will discuss them later on. Plus three other products, which can be quite crucial, especially first two in the larger deals. So it's a Commvault Hyperscale. So it's our appliance or the software-defined storage built on top of the reference architecture that you can use as a backup target, which is leveraging the Hedwig technology. So the company that you acquired last year, it's a company that is that developed a software-defined storage. And in the past, in Hedwig, in the Hyperscale, we used Red Hat Blaster, and now we are using our technology, Hedwig. And the last but not least, Metallic. So our offering Commvault as a service, which is a simplified version of Commvault, accessible to buy as a service, so you don't need to deploy any infrastructure. You can just buy it on the web and protect, for example, your Office 365 workloads or some on-premise workloads, because it's not providing yet the full Commvault functionality, but it's built on Commvault. So it's our joint venture company called Metallic. And let's start with some key areas. So first of all, the backup and the recovery. When we are speaking about Commvault, most of the customers or partners are thinking that Commvault is a quite complex product that is hard to manage. It's not true. Currently, we developed a new interface, which will be shown on the next slide, which is much more simplified, easy to use, and it's providing more or less, I shouldn't say that, but for example, the Vim experience in terms of how you are managing the basic operations. It's providing you the trusted recovery platform. So your backups are fully validated. There is no risk that they will get compromised. They are fully secured also against the ransomware. And it's very cost effective because it doesn't bound you to any particular hardware platform. So one of the key benefits of Commvault is that we are fully hardware agnostic. So you can use any vendor that is your preferred vendor. You won't get stuck, for example, with EMC data domain as a backup target. So going to the simplicity. So some of you may remember the old Java GUI. Of course, it's still in use. You can use it. But we developed the new HTML5 interface, which is much more simplified. It has less options, much more wizards. So it's much easier to configure several features, like, I don't know, for example, the Office 365 backup. It provides you a wizard. You're just selecting next, 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 providing, for example, your admin credentials, and it's automatically creating all of the things needed for running the backup. So we don't need to configure all of those steps manually. You don't need to follow the documentation step by step. A lot of things can be done for you. And because we maintain the role-based access that we have natively built in Commvault, you can expose this simplified interface to the administrator team, like SQL administrators, VMware administrators. So you can use it as a leverage that the backup team can offload some of the workload to other departments, and they don't need to be responsible for all of the backup and the restore operations, which is quite crucial, especially in the larger organizations. Other thing worth mentioning is the variety of the agents. So you won't find any other product on the market that will have so many agents for different platforms, including different operating systems, applications, or cloud workloads. So if the customer is using a bit more complex environment than just few VMs, they have different applications, Commvault will be the answer. Because most of the customers that I'm facing on the POCs, even they are using sometimes quite simple backup software, then they need to run additional scripts on top of that. For example, to backup the Oracle, backup the MySQL, PostgreSQL, MongoDB, or the cloud workloads. So then they are ending up with different endpoints to manage, hard to report, and hard to maintain. And then if you will combine all of those things in one product, you will get, in fact, the simplicity. Key points right now are the containers. Currently, it's even the conference called the KubeCon, which is between the 4th and 7th of May. We are present there. So it's becoming a hot topic, especially in the banking and the finance sector, because those companies are developing hardly the new applications to provide the new services for the customers. And the container approach, because of the scalability, portability, is a very nice solution for that. And there is a lot of interest in protecting also the containers, because the containers were developed initially as an idea of stateless. But as we know, that was the idea, but the life is a bit different way. So they are also storing some data. And it's becoming a challenge how we can protect that. And Commvault is providing a dedicated agent, which is a universal agent for different container platforms that are certified by the CNCF, so Cloud Native Foundation Consortium. So you can use different Kubernetes engines, and also you can port and migrate the workloads between the different platforms. The key thing that is crucial is the container platform needs to use the CSI interface. It's called the Container Storage Interface. It's an abstraction layer that you can snapshot the volume containing the data. And we are providing, because it's a universal agent for different Kubernetes platform, we are providing a way to migrate the data between the different platforms. So it's another answer for the questions for the customer. How can I restore, for example, my container environment in case of disaster? You can just easily restore it, for example, from the on-prem to cloud, or from the cloud to on-prem, if you are looking for cloud exit strategy. Commvault disaster recovery, another hot point on the POCs. So currently customers are using various different products. Sometimes they're using the SRM tool, or they're using the Beam replication, or Zerto, or any other product, or just a few scripts. So the Commvault is having a built-in tool for that. Of course, it won't replace the storage level application, because it's a different layer, which is providing you, in some cases, even the zero data loss. For example, if you will use the Hitachi Catalans or the synchronous application on the different storages. But it's a way to provide you a possible approach to provide various different RPOs, depending on the engine that you will use, plus the scalability and portability. So first of all, it's very simple. So if you will be supporting multiple different hypervisors, of course, including the VMware Hyper-V and cloud, I will show you later on what are the different conversion and replication possibilities. And what's important, it's simple. So we are calling it one-click disaster recovery. So after you will configure the recovery target, so the place where you want to replicate the data, you can build a scenarios. So which VMs will get replicated, what will be the order that they will start. If you want to move forward with the failover in case of some of the applications or some of the VMs will fail during the start, or you want to go to do the failback or abort the failover operation. So it's fully supporting a different approaches. So you can have the planned failover and planned failover plus the failback, and as well the possibility to test the plans. Because if you have the plan and it's not tested, to be honest, it's worth nothing. So this kind of the approach with the simplified disaster recovery allows you to address some changes to the customers, especially if currently they don't have the proper DR in place, which is, and it starts to become more and more crucial, especially if we are speaking about the ransomware, which will be also a topic of one of the slides. And that's the flexibility, because Commvault disaster recovery it's built on top of our backup platform. So in most cases, the disaster recovery is using the backup and the restore approach, of course, including the change log tracking, etc. We are also giving the possibility to convert the workloads between the different platforms. So if you will find the customer that is currently, for example, having only the on-prem environment and they don't have the proper DR in place, or their disaster recovery site is just a closet in the other building. For example, you can offer them the possibility to replicate the data between the on-prem and the cloud, which is becoming more and more popular approach in terms of building disaster recovery because it's way cheaper than renting that other site. On different POCs, I was testing, for example, the VMware to Azure or VMware to AWS replication, which is fully bidirectional. So we can go from the VMware to AWS and then go back if you will fix your site. And sometimes the cost of running the DR for a few VMs was just a few dollars for the storage, plus a few other dollars for running the workload for a few hours just to test if the VM is running properly. So basically, you are paying just for the storage, and only in case of disaster when you need to start your VMs, then of course you will need to pay. But if you will calculate that, for example, your disaster will happen just once every few years, definitely it will be way cheaper than having another standby disaster recovery site. Of course, if you have multiple locations and you can leverage them as an active site, then it's fine. But most customers, especially those smaller ones, they are relying on only one data center, or they are trying to rent something on the external provider side. Hyperscale. So I was mentioning that we acquired a company called Hedwig last year. So the main goal of acquiring this company was to acquire the technology for building the software-defined storage, because we had to pay to Red Hat for the cluster. So now we have our own engine, and as well, we get a lot of other benefits. Because cluster has some limitations that you need to expand the appliance by the number of free nodes at least, depending how you start the configuration. So you had to start with 3 nodes, and then if you want to expand, you had to add additional 3 nodes, which was, to be honest, a bit hard, especially to how to explain to the customers, because, for example, they just need few terabytes of capacity, but they had to buy 3 nodes. So currently, because we are using the different engine, we have the possibility to expand the appliance node by node. So the Commvault Hyperscale X you can buy in 2 different approaches, or you can buy the appliance from Commvault, which is fully pre-configured and ready to be connected, or you can use the architecture called the reference architecture. So you can build it, the Hyperscale on top of almost any vendor. It can be Dell, it can be HP, it can be Lenovo, Supermicro. We have several different architectures that are certified that can be used, because basically Hyperscale X is standard x86 server. The small appliance is having 4 disks, the bigger one is having 12, but we are also supporting 24 disk enclosures for high density workloads. And one of the things that is also built on top of the backup and recovery is Activate. So all of the things related to getting more value from the data. The things that are quite important for the customers, based on my experience, first of all, is data governance. So what kind of the files, for example, I have on my shares, if my users are keeping some sensitive data on their endpoints or not. So that's the question that the Commvault can help you answer. So we are using the tools that can or scan the live data or scan the backup data for particular PIIs. So it's called the personal identifiable information. So for example, it can be a social security number, it can be your ID number, credit card number, bank account number, etc. So we can find those informations in the files and highlight, for example, the places where there is a lot of this kind of the information. And then you can perform additional actions related to that to avoid the situation that, for example, we had in Poland, that one of the employees of the university was keeping all of the information about the students on his personal laptop, and the laptop gets stolen, and the whole list with all of the information about the students leaked to the internet. So those kind of the tool, data governance, can help you manage those kind of the situation. If you're having the customer that is having some kind of the legal issues, or they need to be prepared, for example, for searching across large amount of data to find a particular information for the legal department, compliance search and e-discovery is an answer for that. Because basically, if you, for example, need to find some information like emails between the different users on the specific dates, or search across multiple mailboxes, then it takes a lot of time if you want to do it manually. Having the data content index can shrink the time from several months or weeks, just a few minutes or a few seconds, depending how many informations you need to find. So I was in the past, because I was the backup admin, I was involved in this kind of operation, and we were restoring, I think, over 50 different mailboxes from different points in time. Then the guys on the domino side were trying to index those information, find something. It took us almost 2 months to find the information for the legal department. With Commvault, it will take maximum 1 hour. And the third thing, file system optimization. So it's the possibility to scan your files, get the metadata, and see what is the distribution of your data, how much data it's old, not used, or even is belonging to the user that are not existing in your Active Directory anymore. So you may have a lot of on-prem data. So if you will look at the statistics, also based on my experience, if you will take for example, the file server, the consideration, around 75 to 80% of the data in most cases is older than 3 years, and it's never been used since that. So based on this tool, so the file system optimization, you can identify those data, and then using the Commvault feature called the archive, you can move the data from the primary storage to a secondary storage. Of course, it's not a direct saving, because you need to store the data on both sides. So you need to pay on the production storage or the backup storage. But of course, on the backup storage, it will consume less space, so you will have some savings. But there is another thing that is really crucial for the business. It's a recovery time. If you have 10 terabyte file server, which is containing 7 terabytes of crappy data, in case of the ransomware attack, you still need to restore 10 terabytes of data, which takes time, especially if you have millions of files. But in case you will do the FSO plus you will archive the data, then you need just to restore 3 terabytes of data. So your restore recovery time objective is 3 times shorter. So that will be the main value for the business, and it should be raised at every occasion. So ransomware. So 2 topics to go. The first one is ransomware, which is a hot topic all the time. Commvault is providing you the mechanism to protect against the ransomware on different levels. First of all, we are protecting our backups. So because we have the features to lock our disk libraries on Windows and Linux. So the processes, so only processes that are able to access the backup storage are the Commvault processes. So if you will try to manually delete the data, even as a root user, it's not possible. So that's the first thing. The other thing, of course, to protect against the ransomware is possibility to create the copies of the data on different types of media. It can be tape, it can be object storage on-prem or in the cloud. It can be another disk storage, depending on the things that you would like to leverage, and you can maintain those data in a different locations. Of course, ransomware is not only the protecting, but it's also recovery. So in case of the ransomware, our mechanisms like IntelliSnap, so possibility to restore the data from the snapshot, or data replication also comes to the play. So you can quickly restore your data if they will get infected. Another thing also with ransomware, but not only, but it's air gapping. So Commvault has the most advanced engine to manage the traffic between the clients and the backup infrastructure. So you can decide if it will be a one-way communication, if it will be a two-way communication, if it will be a communication through a server called the proxy server. So there won't be a direct communication between a client and the backup infrastructure. So you can build very secure way of connecting the components each other, that you won't, let's say, open any unnecessary port, and you will expose your infrastructure for the threats. So using, for example, one-way communication, you can fully hide your backup infrastructure behind the firewall and just have the port open on the client, or using the gateway, so the step in between. You can even hide behind the firewall, the client and the backup infrastructure. And the only component that will have the ports open will be the gateway. And through this gateway, client and the media agent or the ComServe will connect to each other. And also the air gapping gives you the possibility, for example, to keep your offsite copies fully secured, because using the one-way firewall, for example, you can hide your DR location behind few firewalls, so it can be fully secured and only accessible, for example, from a specific management network that only certain servers will be able to get to this network. And also, we have the features not only to protect our infrastructure, but also to monitor the client infrastructure. So, for example, we can monitor the amount of changes on the files on the file server. So we are using the change journal on the file system, or we are monitoring how many files are being changed in the backup, depending on which approach you will choose. And then we are able to build, using the built-in artificial intelligence, to build the patterns, how many files are being changed on the particular days, particular time frames. And then if there will be a difference between the pattern and the current situation, you can raise the alarm. So we can send an email to the administrator that, hey guy, there is a lot of files being changed right now. You should, let's say, act accordingly. Or you can, except sending an email, execute on a workflow. So automated process, for example, will shut down the server in case of there will be an anomaly. So we had a situation that the customers had some nice and expensive appliances to protect against the ransomware. And the first thing that noticed the ransomware attack was Commvault using the anomaly detection. Of course, it's not the protection against, because then you see that the attack is already happening. But you can easily stop the attack, so you can stop the spreading the attack, and then using the recover files until the particular point in time, you can easily go back just before the attack started. And the last thing, so cloud. If there will be a cloud in your opportunity, there is one answer: Commvault. Because we have the full native integration with different cloud providers. We have different possibilities of converting the workloads between the different clouds, and we don't need to have any appliances in the cloud. So if you look at how the different vendors are, let's say, trying to explore the cloud, especially in terms of storing the data there, they need to have different appliances being stored there, which are generating additional costs. In Commvault, we are just writing directly to the cloud. So if you just want to start with a cloud as a storage, you don't need, to be honest, anything. You can just allow the media agent to connect to the cloud, and you can start, for example, the basic process of replacing the tapes for the long-term storages with using the Glacier, for example, as a cold and archive tier for your data. Or you can leverage the storage that we are providing. So our company Metallic is providing the backup storage, which is to be honest the same storage that you have in the Azure, because Metallic is Azure based, but we are covering the egress traffic. So if you are looking for the customers that want to store the data in the cloud, but they want to have the constant cost, so they don't want to pay a higher charges in case they will start to download some data from the cloud, one answer, Metallic, which gives you the fixed cost of having the data in the cloud. And as you see, we have support for different clouds. We can protect the different workloads. We can integrate with the KMS, so the key management systems in different clouds, protect different applications, even the SaaS-based applications like databases, not only the VMs or collaboration platforms. And this area is being heavily developed. So there are two main areas that are being heavily developed, to be honest, currently. One is the disaster recovery, and the second one is the cloud. So because those topics are being hot topics, and Commvault would like to focus around that. So we can start small, like just with the data replication to the cloud, and then if the customer would like to expand their portfolio and move some services to the cloud, you will be ready with your agents and the infrastructure to protect those workloads.